Hi everybody, welcome to our live webinar on scheduling 24-hour shifts and short-term accommodation. Thanks everyone for doing our poll. I'll just quickly show you the results here. So it looks like a bit of a 50-50 mix regarding who's rostering 24-hour shifts, short-term accommodation and across different pay boundaries. So hopefully we'll answer all your questions today during our session. So thanks very much for completing that poll for us. Today we've got with us Cecile Cuminard, our Head of Marketing, and Sissy Quinn, our Marketing Assistant. My name's Andrew Lee. I'm the Customer Success Manager at ShiftCare, and doing our webinar today is Ian Deshays, the Head of Customer Support at ShiftCare. So in today's webinar, this question comes up quite a lot in our chat channel around scheduling 24-hour shifts. They are a little bit complicated, so we'll take you through how you do these rosters for the short-term accommodations and basically paying the client and the staff members across those shifts. So we'll go through allocating fixed pricing to a 24-hour shift, how you manage your payroll, community access, creating client and staff profiles for the accommodation side of things, how to attach allowances for longer shifts, and we've got the Q&A session as well going. So if you have any questions during the webinar, just shoot them through on the Q&A section. Down the bottom of your Zoom channel, there's a Q&A button. Just probably avoid using the chat if you can, and just use the Q&A button. Leave your audio and video off if you can, and I'll try and answer the Q&A as we go, and then we'll move over at the end of the session and we'll do a live Q&A as well at the end. Before we move on, I just wanted to point out we have a really good YouTube channel up and running now. So if you wanted to jump onto YouTube and just search for ShiftCare, we've got all of our Learning Centre videos as well as our previous webinars. And this webinar is being recorded and we'll have that up on YouTube probably in the next 2 hours after this webinar is completed. If you wanted to subscribe, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, and you'll be notified whenever a new video is released. With that, I'll pass over to Ian and we'll get going with the webinar. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks for the intro, Andrew, and thanks everyone for making the time today. I'm expecting some questions as we go along, so please do ask through the Q&A at the bottom of the page, and you know, if I don't cover it in the as we walk through the examples, then I'll try and cover the examples for you today. And you know, if there are things that we can't get to, then we'll send you a personalised response. So I'll just start sharing my screen with the example. So today, in terms of context, we're assuming that you've already set up your pay groups. The pay groups define the different times of the day, the different rates kick in. For example, I've got from 6 till 8 today on a weekday. That's what perhaps considered ordinary hours, and then from 8 o'clock onwards would be the night rate. And you can have different groups within ShiftCare. So if you've got different levels of workers on different rates, then you can create different pay groups for those. I won't go into too much more detail about that because that's a different subject and different session. So along with the pay groups, we're also using allowances in the examples. So allowances are things that you can add to shifts to I guess increase the pay or alter the pay outside of the standard. So typically without an allowance attached to the shift, the pay groups kick in. However, with some of the allowances, you can set them to override the hours. So most accounts will have a sleepover that's set to override hours. There are a few other options when you edit that. But in our examples today, we'll talk about the sleepover and also an alternative method later on of reporting hours to the payroll system. These two allowances, accommodation active hours and accommodation sleepover hours. That's going to be for our 24-hour shift. So allowances and pay items or pay groups, they control what staff are paid. We've also got, on the flip side, the charges to a client. I've already preloaded some NDIS prices by clicking on actions and import it from the NDIS price guide. And here I've searched on STA to find the STA assistance and also assistance with self-care activities in an STA. So those are all preloaded. Within the prices, there's two different types of prices. So there are fixed prices. So regardless of the duration of the shift, you're going to have, in this case, on a weekday for a one-to-one shift, that's going to be charged at $1,775. That's just fixed. Whereas some of the other, more commonly, prices are charged per hour. So you've got here, just during the daytime, $57.10 per hour. So to create a fixed price, click on the pencil icon and just click fixed price. If I click save, that'll show that now as a per hour rate. And it asks for the time of day. This is more appropriate to charge as a fixed price. So that's those are some of the prices we've set up to enable us to charge the client. In our schedule, I've filtered down to some of the staff members. Typically, Zane's shift here, Zane's calendar, we've set up to report how many hours within each of these pay groups. So a lot of people are using this method. So, for example, if you will report the number of hours that fit within each of the different breakdowns for a pay group. In this case, we've got 12 hours that fit in the day rate, 2 hours that fit in the night rate, and then in this case, we've got a sleepover shift. And in our sleepover shift, if we go into advanced edit, we'll see that allowance, the sleepover allowance, is attached to that shift. So this means because of the override hours, we're going to report to the payroll system to pay one sleepover allowance for that shift. I'll just go back. That means, for example, in this example, Zane's working 12 hours a day, 2 hours at the night rate, and gets one sleepover allowance through to the next day, where the morning rate kicks in, or the continuation, sorry, of the night rate, and then back to the day hours. Now, obviously, this is a bit of an example. Poor Zane can't work 24 hours a day for 7 days a week, but it's just a pattern of shifts. Where things change is when it gets to Friday. So in the week, the sleepover shifts have continued on through from one day to the next. We have here on Friday a break. So Zane's, so this is essentially paying Zane all of the hours up to Friday, from Friday night. And then on Saturday, we're going to kick over and pick up that he's now going to work Saturday rates, and the same again on Sunday, so that it contains the hours just for Saturday, and again onto Sunday, another split so that the hours reported don't fall into the pay for the next day. They're contained within that same day. Otherwise, the system, there's a setting on the system to pay or calculate the hours based on the start or the end time of the shift. More commonly, it's the end time. So in this case, if we were to have a sleepover shift that ran from Sunday into Monday, then the calculation of the hours would be done on Monday. So, and given the award stipulates that you have to pay the Sunday rate for hours worked on the Sunday, this is where the weekday pattern breaks down, and you just constrain the shift into that day. So that's one method. Obviously, a lot of shifts to have to manage, and the staff member sees a lot of shifts. There is an alternative to this. For example, here, CC has been assigned a 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. shift, a night shift. Because of the shift type, it's gone from the Monday into the Tuesday for the 24 hours. And we can see here the scheduled time is calculated as 24 hours. If I go into advanced edit, when we look at the allowances, the allowances here are for 16 hours active hours, 8 hours sleeping. So we have here just a reminder of the allowances we've set up. The system's going to report 16 hours to the payroll system and 1 sleepover allowance to cover that 8 hours of or it's assuming either an inactive sleepover or potentially an active sleepover, depending on how you configure that. But it's using these allowances that are set to override the hours. So the system doesn't look at these pay groups. Instead, it's purely looking at the allowance and reporting these values through to the payroll system. So the benefit is, rather than having lots of shifts that are broken up, we're able to use the allowances to override that breakup and just create one shift that spans the whole time frame. So that, from a staff member's point of view, they see the one shift. From your scheduling team's point of view, they're able to create a single shift rather than the multiple shifts in Jane's example. So that might be an alternative method to scheduling and running the payroll for multiple, if it does run over multiple pay boundaries. In terms of charging the client, there is, under advanced edit, the ability to split the time. So if you did want to charge different rates for different parts of that shift, you can use the split there to apply different prices to that shift. So that's options to either break up long shifts or alternatively create long shifts and report different rates to the payroll system. Before I move on to the seal section, I'll just take CC and Zane out of that schedule just to clean that up a bit. So here we've got an example where we've got a client or a client and a staff member who are named after an accommodation. So in this case, Mitre Street. Jenny is our client who's attending Mitre Street for 3 nights, 24 hours. Again, we've used the night shift type We could use the sleepover shift type as well to tell the system that the shift starts on one day, finishes the next. And our pattern was that it was Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday repeating. So in this example, we've scheduled Jenny, the client, with Mitre Street, the staff member. We've got Mitre Street set up as a no access staff member. That means that the staff member doesn't count towards your license costs, and also you can double book these clients or these staff members, sorry. Whereas typically you're not able to double book a staff member. So that can come in useful when you've got multiple clients attending the accommodation. So just to talk a bit more about the price, so STA and assistance and respite, because we've got a fixed price here. This means for every day that Jenny, our example client, attends the shift, attends the accommodation, the pricing will charge her $1,775. When it comes to Jenny also doing, let's say, some access community activities, we've set Marcus up here, the staff member with the client. And this just is a repeating shift for the time that our client's attending the accommodation. We've got a one-to-one shift with Jenny and Marcus, and we're using this assistance with self-care activities in an STA price. And that's priced at 57 pen per hour. So for those hours that Jenny's also in the community with Marcus, she's being charged the 3 hours at the 57.10 on top of the STA price. Now, Marcus is in this example. Marcus is our person that comes to the home and takes the client out. We might also have some other clients who are staying in the accommodation, not necessarily doing the access in the community activities. So from that point of view, we've set up another client called Mitre Street, and that client is just set there. It might help to put the SIL accommodation as the accommodation address as the address, so that when you're creating shifts for that SIL, that's populated in the shift. Now, in our example, we've got Gretchen working during the day. And Gretchen here is doing a full week from 9 till 9. It's a standard shift, so it doesn't fall, across to the next day. Whereas Emily, who's doing the night shift, for example, she's going to run from 9 p.m. till 9 a.m. her shift. And again, we've used the night shift type so that it doesn't fall across. This means that both Gretchen and Emily know that the times of their shifts, that they're going to attend the accommodation, and they're able to see that on the app. It'll be very apparent. They've just got the one block of shifts. In this case, we've assigned a price to the shift, but we won't actually be billing this client. Any billing would be attributed to Jenny or directly through the start, through this accommodation 24-hour shift, or alternatively when she's going out into the community, this hourly rate charge. So those are different scenarios for invoicing invoicing the clients who are attending the accommodation. We also had to tell the staff which shifts they have for that accommodation. Obviously, with more clients attending, you can add additional clients in for the accommodation, and if they're doing more one-to-one shifts with other staff members, then you create the shifts as normal in there. So really, the key is rather than having shifts for Jenny that are 24 hours attached to Marcus, the staff member, we're creating an alternative staff member who has the shifts assigned to them that are running 24 hours, and then in reverse for the client, we create a client named after the shift, after the accommodation, so that the staff members know where they're attending. So those are our different scenarios. I'm sure there are other scenarios that people have questions about. We'd certainly love to hear examples and questions. It doesn't look like anyone's asked any questions as yet, but please poke them through the Q&A at the bottom of the page, and we'll be able to run through those examples and give you some real life scheduling examples aside from these ones. We've got, Tari's got a question. Hi, Tari. So we've got a question about how does this allow for India audit satisfaction if we have a cell that's named after the accommodation for the client. So I'm assuming the question is not necessarily about invoicing, is more to do with notes for the client and progress and that sort of thing. So from that perspective, you've still got the option of having notes attached to the shifts that the staff member and the client are doing, and obviously they get fed into the communication history for that client. There's also, from, let's say, the perspective of Emily or Gretchen, who's attending to the client there, you have the option, you can add the client into that shift. Alternatively, instead of that, you can set these, you can use the kiosk user mode. The kiosk user can see all the shifts in the schedule, in the read-only view of the calendar, and then add notes to that as well. Got another question from Lauren. Lauren, we might take that offline. Lauren's asking about the pay items and not syncing through to Xero correctly. Lauren, that might be more to do with connecting pay items here in the in the system. If you go to Actions and Sync, it'll ask you to log into Xero, and Xero tells ShiftCare the list of earnings rates you have set up. You can then align those up from the different rates. And that's perhaps the problem, but I'll make note to come back to you on that after this. So Rita's asked how to roster a 12 or 24-hour shift. Rita, that answer would probably be more, I think that's covered by show you the option here for CC. So we've got a 24-hour shift. The same sort of principle applies. We're suggesting to use the allowances of 16 or 8 hours to report through to the payroll system to use to either be 16 hours or 8 hours. So you can change that up. Shani, we would like to set up a sleepover that runs 4:30 to 7, paid 6 hours, plus an allowance of inactive 8 hours. Yeah, so to do that would be a similar thing. So we'll use CC again, but create a shift there, we'll pick a client. So running from say 4:30 p.m. to 7 a.m. Now again, because of the shift type, we'll have to pick either the sleepover or a night shift type, so that the system lets you create a shift that finishes the following day. So now that we've got that, we'd want to apply an allowance of either say 6.5 active or plus inactive hours. So let's just say I'm going to create a new allowance. So this is our active. We're going to override the hours, and we're going to put another. So this is inactive 8. Okay,
and you just have to change the active 6.5 value to 6.5 on the value section.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. What I was thinking is we'd use Xero to pick that up and have. So we're in this case we're reporting to pay one of these allowances and then have Xero.
I see. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So in Xero, if I go into the settings, for example, payroll system. Sorry, settings in Xero, and then what's payroll settings, and then pay items tab.
We can't see your Xero screen, Ian. Just if you're trying to.
Interesting. Sorry.
That's all right.
Thank you. Sorry. So hopefully you can see my Xero screen. So here we're going to say add ordinary time earnings. If I flip back, so we'll say we'll call that inactivate. Hours. And this is where we get to set how much is paid, the dollar amount paid. And then we would sync to Xero, pick up those ordinary time earnings and connect that through here. I might see if I can do it, but it might ask me to log in there too. So what I would be doing is doing that connection to Xero, picking up the new earnings rate I've just created and matching that up with that rate there. And then in my go back, refresh. Now that I've created those allowances, I can go into the system and pick up that active 6.5 and the active 8 to override what's paid there from that shift. Just reading through some of the other questions. Andrew, shout out if you've got some.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
The one from Tari is interesting. When we do a 2-to-1 support, it's not coming across. That's something we might actually cover off in support, Tari, afterwards. If that's an invoicing issue, we'll contact you about that one. Lauren's asked to invoice a client in a permanent SIL. Can I roster the 24-hour care under the house name so it could be sent to the plan manager for payment?
Yes, yes, you can, Lauren. So I'll show you how that works. The being based on the client Jenny, we can open details. Just open it in a new tab, and if we go into the billing report, got to just pick this. So our date range. I set the shifts up to run for this week. We'll see that each day there's this STA price repeating through, and we've also got the like the 3 hours example that was in the community an hourly charge. So we're seeing 3 hours, $57 as opposed to the flat rate fee. Now, in terms of the plan manager, if I just jump over to Jenny's details page, Jenny already has billing contact set up here. The person's name is Your Plan. So that might be the plan manager, or if Jenny wasn't directly paying invoices, then whoever else would be the billing contact. To add a billing contact, under the additional contacts, just click add. And then at the bottom, once you've completed the details, you get to select whether they're the billing contact or the primary contact. The primary contact always sits at the top of the list, and the billing contact is the person who is invoiced for that client by default. So let's say I'm going to select all of these and create my invoice. The number is inclusive of tax. So select that option to the two, so this plan manager or the client. And then when I create that, I'm going to see that it's directed to the plan manager. We've got the fixed rate, STA, and the hours repeating through. And then Lauren, you've got the option then, once the invoices are created, you can go to the invoice list page, filter down, issued today. So this is our invoice. You can open that invoice, email it from ShiftCare, but what's more common is people are downloading the invoice to their accounting package, or alternatively, if it's if you're doing the bulk claims to a product, you export the invoices through the NDI option. So hopefully that answers your question, Lauren. Was there any other questions from anyone? Did anyone have any other examples that you wanted to run through?
No more have come through, Ian, at this point.
Well, thanks everyone for your questions today and taking the time out of your week to run through those topics. As Andrew mentioned, we'll put the recording on our YouTube channel, and also our next marketing email out to everyone. We'll include a link to the recording back to YouTube. If there are questions that come up after this, emailing support@shiftcare.com will reach the team. And then our next webinar will be on timesheets. So we have a new timesheet format coming out, so we'll be talking about the changes there, and then also the process of running payroll, timesheet approval, and basically how to manage all of those approving clock in, clock out times, or rejecting those and using the scheduled times, and then what happens when a staff member forgets to clock in or clock out, which I'm sure is very common.
Thanks very much, Ian. That was fantastic. As Ian said, if anyone's got any questions, we've got our online chat that you can log into when you're in ShiftCare, or you can reach us at support@shiftcare.com. We'll see you in November for our next session on timesheets.